Hey guys, Dog here. Since I posted my Sharpmaker video, I've had a lot of questions about it, people having problems getting good results, a lot of people asking about techniques and stuff, and I can say I've had it long enough now that I've learned quite a bit. I've developed my own techniques, and I've been able to get really good results. I really like it. Now, I'm going to say at the beginning of this, partially what I said during my first Sharpmaker video, and that's this thing sucks for reprofiling. Even if you buy the extra diamond rods, it's still not easy to reprofile, and a lot of what I'm going to tell you is about reprofiling, and it can be done. I've done it on several knives with the diamond rods, but it does take a long time. If you do it while watching TV or something, it may not seem to take so long, but it does take a little while to get done on the Sharpmaker. Now, when I say reprofiling, I have some questions about that. Basically, I'm talking about the angle of the edge of the knife, the very cutting edge. So, let's say I've got a knife edge that looks something like this. Now, this is a really fat angle for a knife. It would probably work fine, but really, I mean, on my knives, I prefer 30 degrees or less, and that holds true for any high-end knives. I mean, that's a lot of what you're paying for when you buy a high-quality knife, is the ability to take that steel down to a really shallow angle and still have it be stable and strong and perform as you need it to. Now, that's not the only reason why you pay a lot of money for high-end knives, but that's generally part of the reason. So, say I brought home a knife that had an edge angle that looked something like that, and I want to bring that down to 30 degrees. Well, if I go ahead and I run it across my Sharpmaker, you can see right here, I'm only hitting this top portion of the knife edge. I mean, it's just gonna take small slivers one at a time, and typically it'll look something like this. So, you know, I'm working on it, working on both sides, and then I'm going to get something like this. So I've made progress, and I'm getting there, but I still need to work at it until I get it down to something like this, something where I reach the edge of the blade along the whole stroke downward. So I would say for a lot of people that they're frustrated on their first time, you know, they say, hey, I watched the video that came with it, I did exactly what Sal Glesser said, and it's just not getting sharp. It's just as dull as it was before. This is probably most likely number one problem, is your edge profile on your knife is too wide to begin with, and it needs to be brought down to this much finer angle. One thing that can help you aid in getting it down to that is putting some Sharpie on the edge of your blade. So just take a Sharpie and just run it along the edge of your blade, just like so. There you go. And go ahead and take some swipes, and after you take some swipes on the rods, you'll be left with some Sharpie on there, and you'll be able to see, sometimes, you know, you'll have a good enough angle back here, but you're not hitting the total edge up here, so you can decide to work more on the front part of your blade, but the Sharpie really reveals where you're hitting on the stones, so that's a good trick. And Sharpie wipes right off. I can get a rag with some WD-40 or something, I can take that right off. So that's a good trick for seeing if you're hitting the whole edge of the blade, and that's really where I think people are having the most problems when they're using the Sharpmaker system. Another thing I want to point out, in the videos that comes with the Sharpmaker, he goes through the steps of working on the edges of the stones and then working on the flats of the stones. I have moved almost entirely to working on the flat of the stone, and the reason I did that is because of rounding the very point of the knife. So what'll happen sometimes is, if you're not really being careful and paying attention, you're coming down, and when you get to the end of the blade, you'll slip off and you'll just ride this edge. And if you've done it, you would notice it pretty quickly, but it'll take the sharp, delicate point off your knife real quick, and that's annoying. To me, it is, at least. So I've moved almost entirely to the flat parts of the stones, which any knife that has some belly to it, if you have belly to the knife, you're only going to be contacting it at one place anyway, because anytime you stick something of curvature against something that's flat, you're only going to get one point of contact. So it's just the same as using the edges, and I find it just as effective personally. So that's another thing. Basically, where you put this thing's important. I recommend putting it at waist level. If it's up too high, it's really difficult to get the right motion here. So if you put it down lower, kind of around your waist, kind of go around the house, find different tables that might work for you. Because say my workbench, for example, is too high, so I go over to the dining room table and I do it there. So that's another important thing. Another thing, keep the rods clean. I use Barkeeper's Friend. It's a powder and a scouring brush. You can get Barkeeper's Friend. I actually bought it at Target. It was in the cleaning aisle. I use a Scotch-Brite pad with the Barkeeper's Friend powder on there, and that really cleans those rods up real nice. And anytime, you can see over time, you'll get a buildup of metal on there, and I can even run my finger on it and get some of that on there. And really, I clean the rods about every 1 or 2 sharpenings personally, because there's no sense in spending more time trying to sharpen on a dirty rod just because you're trying to save time from not cleaning the rod. So those are my few learnings with the system. Like I said, it's not great for reprofiling, and on a lot of new knives that you buy, if they come in with a wide set angle, you'll have to spend some time reprofiling them. It'd be nice if you could find a knife sharpener that can sharpen to a specific angle. Maybe for the first time, have them do it, take all the labor out if they do it for cheap. Then you can maintain your knife really easily on the Sharpmaker system. One extra note, this is not the Sharpmaker system, but a strop is a really nice additional feature for when you're sharpening your knives, and it does a couple things. For one, it'll deburr your knife. Burring happens in the sharpening process. Basically, you get a little extra really fine part of the edge that's overhanging that you don't necessarily want, because it'll be really easy to bend it over or chip or break off. So you really want to deburr your knives after you sharpen them, and a strop is really nice for that. And also, the strop is really nice to maintain the edge. You can use your knife, and then between uses, go ahead and give it a few laps on the strop, and you'll have to sharpen it a lot less often. Now, I have with okay results. I'm not real big on it, but a lot of people do suggest to deburr your knife if you don't have a strop. Say you sharpen your knife at 30 degrees, go ahead and put your fine or ultra fine stones in the 40-degree slots, and with a real light pressure, just take a couple quick strokes, and that should take the burr off. Like I said, I prefer the strop, but you can do it either way. So those are my Spyderco Sharpmaker tips and tricks. I hope you found it helpful, and thanks for watching.